Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative, speaking to Medalion Rahimi about NCIS LA. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure. I mean, there's obviously so many questions. I mean, a show like NCIS LA, it's so packed. There's always something happening in the show. So like you could probably do like a podcast a week, right? Like with different things that happen on a show like that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just with the characters and their sort of side stories, and, you know, we do bring a new case. It's a new case every single episode. So
yeah, exactly. And I want to get into that, of course. But storytelling, acting. Did you always know you wanted to do that specifically? How did you get involved with that specifically?
You know, it wasn't always. I always sort of dreamed. I loved performing. I loved the creative arts. You know, I was definitely an arts and crafts girl, and I think that it didn't really become a serious consideration for a career until maybe, you know, my junior year of high school, when I was thinking, like, do I want to pursue this and do I want to go to school for this? But before that, it was sort of just, I've always loved, you know, putting myself in people's shoes. And I always thought that was cool to imagine. You know, I just see someone on the street and wonder, like, what is a day in their life like, you know, just based off of how they look and what they're doing, what they're holding. And I think, you know, I come from Middle Eastern parents, so of course the hope is always, you know, maybe something a little bit more stable of a career, but, you know, my parents have been so supportive. So yeah, it was always a dream, but never really a tangible one until about college, basically.
No, 100%. And now we're talking about, it's crazy too how, I feel like a lot of things, like you have an idea of maybe what you want to do, and then like, something happens and then another thing happens and it's like, yeah, here I am. And it's like, this was not planned. You know what I mean?
No, I didn't think it would be a plausible career, you know, and I grew up here and I saw it all over the place, but, you know, I was thinking about going to school for journalism initially. Yep. But then I just took the leap.
And it's interesting because, I mean, there's a lot that kind of happens with, you know, Agent Namazi, like Fatima Namazi and everything. And I just kind of want to know, like, I mean, how would you describe the character, but kind of diving a little bit deeper, like, what do you love the most about this character specifically as well?
Well, I love how multifaceted she is. She's complex. She's not just one thing. Like, you see her, and just based off of her, you know, the way she presents herself, like, you know, okay, she's Muslim. Great.
Yes.
But she's more than her religious identity. And that's what I love is she's cool. She can fight. She's she's high tech. She's, you know, a little deadpan, sarcastic. And then, you know, she also is a nerd. I just love how she's all those things. Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned multifaceted. I would say complex as well. I mean, you could make an argument that every character on NCIS LA are complex in their own way, if you think about it. There's every character is like, okay, I can't read this character, but there's so many reasons why you can't read this character. That would be different to your character compared to others. Do you know what I mean by that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They are, you know, because I mean, the show there's humor and there's drama, there's action. So the characters have to be able to sort of present that or represent that tone of the show as well.
And it's pretty cool and exciting because after a year of being on the show, you were promoted to a series regular, which is incredible. And I'm so happy for you. I mean, what's that like? What's that kind of new, like, what's it like? Does that news ever officially sink in, do you think, sometimes? Because you're doing something that, you know, is the combination, like that news of being up to a series regular is a combination of like many years of kind of work, just like rewarded right in one kind of like news bite from your team, right? One message from your team. You know what I mean?
Yes, and just like that, I think it's every actor's dream to be a
Yeah.
guest star on a show, and then they like you so much that they keep you on as a series, right? That's like the hope and dream. It happens so rarely, as you know. So that was really exciting, and I'm so grateful for that. But, it wasn't my first series regular ever, but it was the first one on a show that was so successful
Yes.
and already has this long-standing reputation and audience. So it was also funny coming into a show that's been on for so long, because you kind of feel like,
Do you feel like the new kid on the block sometimes? Yeah.
I still do after 3 years, because they've known each other for 14 years. I still feel like, I don't know, like they adopted me into the family 3 years ago, and I'm still like finding my way.
For sure.
They're so lovely, and they really are like a family, and that's what's so
Yep.
beautiful about it. Yeah.
Big cast. I mean, I feel like an understatement. I mean, like huge casts. You get to work with so many cool, amazing people. What is that mindset? Knowing that, Agent is that like she's gonna cross paths with so many different people on episodes. Like, what is that mindset for you as an actor? Like preparing for that, working with everyone ensemble wise.
Well, I love it. I mean, I feel like before the pandemic, we were working together a lot more often, and then of course, COVID protocols and stuff, they sort of had to separate us a bit, and so we're still hopefully slowly trying to work back to where we're all together at once. But what's great about an ensemble cast is that you have each other to sort of rely on and play off of, but you do have to think of like, okay, how is, like, let's say Caleb going to play this scene right before mine, so I know how he'll be, and I can react to that, or things like that. But it's great, and that in this way, like, some of us get days off because we're not in the scenes, and it's only Deeks and Kenzie, so it's just them all day, and the rest of us get to have the day off and things like that, which is nice. You can rely on each other, and not that we can take a day off, really. But,
I really like that you said that. It's interesting because of, not the day off. I mean, like,
right.
Creatives, there's never days off. Let's be honest. Even when it's a day off, that's not even a day off.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think about the fact though that there's like characters that like your character hasn't crossed paths with, but like maybe one day we'll cross paths with more or be involved? Like that must be a cool thing to think of season after season 2. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I love my character and Kenzie have been teaming up a bit this season, which is something we're going to see. 2 strong female characters banding together and like kicking butt. So that's been great. But yeah, there are, of course, I've had a little bit of time with each character, and I sort of have a special relationship with each of them, I think, but there's only so much time to really dive into those relationships.
Exactly, yeah. 100%. And like a show where like every episode's a different case and everything, there's literally like only so much time for like one episode to flesh out arcs and stuff, right?
Yes, and people like, we want to just get to the juicy goodies, the good stuff.
Who did it, and what was the crime, right?
Exactly. Like, we need to know, yeah. So.
Well, it's my next question. Good segue. It's all about segues here at Popternative. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, like,
transition.
I do feel like the audience member Medalion, it really interests me these days because there's 2 types of audience members, right? There's like the active audience member, the passive audience member. I feel like NCIS SLA is like a combination of both, more active, where, you really are like a detective as an audience member watching a show like this, where you're trying to like figure out what's going on and you're paying attention. And maybe you can be passive at times and have your phone on dual viewing while you're watching it, but dialing in like a detective. What's that like being an actor and a storyteller working on a show, knowing that you're making a show where the audience member has to be a detective there with you? It's cool to think about, right?
It is, absolutely. I mean, it helps you put yourself into their shoes and perspective, because even though you've read the script, you know who did it. You have to remember, like, okay, we are discovering this as we go, and we have to in a way that the audience can follow along, but also they can get the little nuanced clues that we leave, things like that. And I think that that's what's so fun about the show and why audiences keep coming back.
It's a rush, right? Just seeing, and then it's almost like, is it also interesting kind of to add to that a little bit? Like crime and true crime with a podcast. True crime has just been like that genre has exploded, right? Like because everyone's interested. Is it exciting, but also is there a little bit of pressure like working in like crime and drama, knowing that there's a big appetite for it, or is that something you don't really like think about?
I mean, if anything, it's
a rush.
Yeah, exactly. It helps me. I would be like terrified of I used to watch true crime before bed, and I would have nightmares. So for me to be able to work on a show that sort of takes the veil off a little bit on that has been great. I feel like
the idea of like listening to something is scary too, right? Like the idea, like just like listening, and then he did it. He did the crime. You're just listening, and you're like, oh my god. It's like
Yeah, podcasts. I've listened to a few of those that it's like a whole arc of a story about some, water poisoning in this town and the dead girl in the tank. Like, I don't know. Anyway. But I love it because then like my mom will watch the show because she loves true crime.
No, absolutely. New episodes in the new year of NCIS LA, which is cool because it's crazy like how time has flied. It's gonna be 2023 super soon. When I get a chance to watch the show, I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but like before we wrap up, I mean, takeaway wise, like just escapism, have a good time, be on the edge of your seat. That's what you hope they get when they watch NCIS LA, right?
Yes, absolutely. We just want to keep people entertained, and so much is going on in the world, and we don't necessarily need to focus on all the bad. So it's just might as well have some fun. Absolutely.
No, for sure. Medalion, thank you so much for joining me on Popternative. This was so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me again. It was so great.
NCIS LA, you can check that out. And what's your Instagram account for people to keep up to date with everything? Is it just your name?
It is. It's Medalion with 1 L _R. And yeah, please keep up. I've been posting a lot about Iran and everything going on there, and I think that's really important right now. I just wanted to mention that.
Absolutely.
And we appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on here too.
Anytime, seriously. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Medalion Rahimi from NCIS LA and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.